The season narrows down closer to the end, and likewise, the points are closing in. Mathematically, 7 drivers still have a shot. Realistically, the top 4 have become the focus. Of those 4, only one of them has won the championship before. It's going to be a nail-biter for the first-timers as we get ready to watch round 11 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is IMSA driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Summit Point is perhaps a bit small for this car, but that won't dissuade the drivers from racing here anyways. Let's head to our track guide to learn more. Welcome to Summit Point Raceway. Once the stomping grounds of IMSA and Trans Am vehicles thundering through the West Virginia mountains, this circuit is now mainly used for club racing and performance driver training. Situationed a couple hours west of Washington, D.C., there are actually 2 entirely separate circuits that can be tackled here on the iRacing service. The main circuit is just shy of 2 miles in length, including 10 turns, and can be chopped off into the short version, which has 9 turns and only 1.5 miles for a lap. The Jefferson Circuit is its own 1.1 mile piece of pavement with a mere 7 turns and uniquely can be run in reverse. Both tracks are astonishingly narrow and provide quite a technical challenge. On the main course, the most popular place to pass is down into the first corner hairpin. While some drivers may try a brave dive into turn 5, the frighteningly fast kinked entry makes it prone to things going wrong quickly. Between there and turn 9, it's essentially a single file affair with nothing but tight and twisty bends snaking their way around. The Jefferson Circuit isn't used as often, and because there are a few straights long enough to get a run on someone, most drivers are forced to wait for a mistake to pounce on. Otherwise, qualifying will be key. Believe it or not, IMSA's GT class raced here in the late 80s, and even Can-Am stopped in back in 86. While it probably sees much more competition here in the virtual world, it's easy to see why plenty of real drivers love to take their vehicles out to try and tackle this historic Appalachian venue. We have quite the contrast to end off the season, a bull ring and then one of the longest tracks on the service. But we start with the short one here, Joey.
Yeah, Summit Point Raceway, 10 turns in length and just under 2 miles total. Now, don't let those numbers fool you. It has plenty of character out there, and we were talking about it before the show. It gets pretty narrow, especially through there. Turn 3 is always a funnel point, and then watch out for the turn 4 and 5 complex. Things really narrow down there going into one of the only passing opportunities, and then really it's about putting down the grip, which can be so hard with the big engines in these cars, out of the S's, out of turn 8 and 9, and then that huge front straightaway down into turn 1, Joe. It should be a really good race, but drivers have to be mindful of the wheels sticking out of these cars.
Yeah, they're very wide for such a narrow track for sure. Now, as I mentioned, things narrow down, of course, in the championship. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Yes, it is a tie-up at the top between Tyler and Tixier. Mick Claridge, though, has been very fast, but he needs a lot of points to make up in these last 2 rounds, and he cannot take the championship by winning both. It is out of his hands. It is up to the performance of Tyler and Tixier, but Tixier sits the best with the most drop points. Even if he 0 scores on these last 2 races, he still technically has 423 points waiting in his pocket. So keep that in mind throughout today's race, because that can have quite the effect on it. But as we go through the rest of the points, let's head over to the F2 standings here, Joey.
F2 standings, these drivers are only separated by that I rating, a reminder, and Glenn Becker currently leads the way, but Jeff Saunders still only 22 points behind there. Joe, what I'm looking at is this battle for the 3rd place. Check this out. Andrew Eng, Terry Tromhauser, Don Peak, and also Bjorn Ackerman. You know what? Throw Jan Steffen in there. They're only separated by about 15 points, the 3rd through 7th place, and just have to keep an eye on that. And then always you got Cam Porter back there, one of our favorites in terms of the onboard cameras every week, and Tobias Harnby and Mats Linden rounding out the top 10.
And then, of course, we have the Nations Cup here in this series, and there's no drops for this one. So it's still very much on the United States, the United Kingdom, and quite the back and forth. The U.S. now jumping up to the top spot ahead of the U.K., with Spain back there, only 35 points back, so they could still be a serious threat. Singapore, a little bit more of a long shot, but, it all depends on how we see Tixier do, since he's usually getting the bulk of the points for that country. From there on down, you can mostly count out the rest of them. Australia sitting in the top 5, but unfortunately are very, very much a long shot, even though mathematically they are in it. What about today's race details, though, here, Joey? What are they up against?
Round 11 of 12, you mentioned it. It's starting to wind down. Those points are ever more crucial. And 30 laps around Summit Point. It's a pretty fast lap here, under minute 10 seconds. Most of these competitors are doing open setups. So that means they're going to be tweaking and tuning on their car, making sure it feels good underneath them. No spare car, which means if you pick up that damage, you're going to have to live with it out there. And drive-through penalty at 17x, disqualification at 25. And Joe, this top split is always really clean. I don't think we're going to have to worry about this disqualification at all. And especially if they get their wheels tangled, they got bigger problems.
Yeah, that is for sure. And the drivers have certainly gotten themselves plenty to worry about with tangling those tires with the traffic, since it is so short around here. But as we watch Hisada, who currently holds the provisional pole over Tixier, who's just finished his second lap, actually. Now Tixier is our pole sitter at a 1:08.1, but Hisada is completing the second lap right now out of Paddock Bend and onto the front stretch. He uses up that little paved runoff. You're allowed to do that. It's considered part of the racing circuit, but he doesn't improve. He is actually going to get bumped down to third now as one of our other championship hopefuls. Mick Claridge moves up onto the front row. This is turning out to be quite the story today.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I didn't think that Mick Claridge was going to be here today, but all of a sudden on the front row, here comes Don Peak in the number 40 car, also putting down a second qualifying lap. He's one of these F2 contenders.
Bad news on Don Peak. He's missed both laps, actually. They've both been deleted, so he's just out there getting practice now. And he is going to have to start from the back of the field. Not exactly the track that you want to have to overtake a lot of cars here, Joey.
No, and it's going to be busy out there. We're seeing over 40 cars here in this race. You got to keep kind of your head on a swivel out there, because I have a feeling it's going to be a bit like Frogger if you're starting in the back.
Looks like Sanchez, a 1:08.7, is going to jump himself up into 7th, so that's a nice little improvement for him. Nieva's not doing too bad. His second lap was a 1:08.6, and he's just ahead of Xavier. As this is Gary Quellen, currently in the 18th position, just completing his final lap now. Let's see if he improves. A 1:08.9, that's actually a pretty good jump up for him. That'll put him into 11th place. Qualifying going to be so important today, as I think we're waiting on Mark Hewitt to set a time. Looks like he is coming around in time to do that. Kurt Clapper is usually not one who takes a qualifying lap, and he's just exited his qualifying as well. So let's watch the number 32 to see how the Benelux driver does.
This racetrack can be really tricky putting the power down with how much horsepower these cars really produce, and down to a 112.2, good enough for 37th on the grid. And Joe, I want to point this out. The top, let's see here, top 11 cars all in the 108s, separated by less than 1 second.
Yeah, only 0.8 between those 11 cars, so it is tight. There's your starting grid with Tixier on the pole. Now, that does not count for any bonus points, but as we said, that's going to be critical in the race itself. As Mick Claridge starts beside him, will he get a good jump on him at the beginning of the race? Togo Hisada starting from third. He's definitely going to be a fly in the ointment because he's joined in late in the season and has been competitive. After that, it is Bill Tyler starting in fourth, as Gary Ho will be P5, and Jorge Nieva will begin from sixth. Jorge is a little bit more of a long shot in this championship, if we're honest. Xavier Sanchez will start from seventh, and John Olson will be P8. Jack David Spickett, a bit of a surprise lately, but has been very fast. He'll start from ninth, and then Laust Olson will round out your top 10.
There in 11th spot, we have Gary Quellen. 12th, Ben Zoko had a good run last week. And then Gwen Old there in the 13th spot. Have to keep an eye on her. She's been really fast these last few weeks here in these Lotus 49 cars. Robert Plumley there in 14th. Jeff Saunders rounding out the top 15. Glenn Becker 16th. Michael Grissinger. Rolly Walbank. Marco Antonio Salgado there in 19th. And Roberto Pengrazzi in the 20th position.
Paul Wilson will start 21st, followed by Yuri Gayson in the 22nd position. Stave Morris will start 23rd. Bjorn Ackerman, one of our F2 challengers, is in 24th today. Matthew Maudsley, P25, one of our Cam cars. Cam Porter is starting 26th. And it's Terry Traumahauser in 27th. Brad Cathcart in 28th. And Thomas Tuba returns to start 29th. Alexander Rosenthal will round out your top 30.
There in 31st, we have Sam Carsala. Ryan Freeman in 32nd. Jan Steffen, 33rd. Andrew Eng. Jonathan Jourdain there in 35th. Tim Porter, 36th. Mark Hewitt. Jason Clapper. Kurt Clapper in 39th. Peter Brzezinski, 40th. And just a few more here. Asan Jin, Don Peak, and Richard Covington are going to be the total of the 43 cars, Joe.
Basically a NASCAR field out here as they race on, well, about a NASCAR length track, but with many different turns. As it's not too warm, not too cold, about 79 Fahrenheit out there with nearly no wind up in the West Virginia mountains. So this should be a pretty good race and provide quite a bit of grip, but that makes passing even more difficult as the drivers will have shorter braking distances out here with the extra grip. Tixier waits for the last of the drivers to grid up. We just need about 5 more, and then we are good to go for the penultimate round of the season here in the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. This has certainly been an exciting one, which has seen 7 different winners, but Mick Claridge has taken the most, just unfortunately has had to miss a few rounds in the process, which is what's put him on the back foot, despite being overwhelmingly the winningest driver this season. Gary Quellen taking his time before he gets out here. I think he's potentially the last one. There they are. Everybody is on the grid. The engines now start to rev as the lights come up for round 11, and the green flag is out off the line. It is a pretty decent start for Claridge. In fact, it's a very good start. He's already moving himself up into the lead, and he's got a nose ahead. We've got an accident towards the back that is slowing a whole bunch of cars up and splitting the field. Somebody off into the grass down to the inside. They do not bounce back on, it looks like, and Mick Claridge has the track advantage after turn 1.
Yeah, other than that problem a little bit further in the back of the pack, it's actually a pretty clean start throughout the top 25 right here, but you're right, Mick Claridge trying to run away from Sebastian Tixier.
Now, Tixier is still going to be safe if he can hold on to this second place. How hard does he want to try and take those wins and challenge Mick Claridge for pride? Or does he want to try and go for the championship? Togo Hisada behind him as well, probably hungry for more wins. We had an accident down into what we have dubbed yard sale corner as Bjorn Ackerman went off there, unfortunately, but looks like the car is still rolling. We'll see if he can trundle it back to pit lane. We hop on board with one of our cams today, Laust Olsen. In 9th, he's up 1 from where he started as they fly through Paddock Bend and already complete lap 1.
This is one of the most crucial turns on the racetrack, getting the power down out of that long sweeper, as you see, sets you up down this very long straightaway into the tight turn 1 where all these drivers got to get hard on the brakes here.
Oh, Sanchez not hard enough on the brakes. He went away too late. Oh, and behind him, more cars go off. That is going to be Glenn Becker and I think Robert Plumley. Yeah, Sanchez off initially before them. 2 separate incidents in that first corner, and they're going to be able to get back on and rolling. There's Plumley returning all the way down in 21st.
Yeah, you're right. Plumley all the way back down there, but back on the racetrack. And I think it's going to be a continuing story, Joe, of how narrow this racetrack is. It already seems to catch a lot of competitors.
Had a little contact with Pengrazzi. He gets bumped off course. He comes to a halt. Wonder if he just hit the suspension wrong. We'll see if he toes in or not. But we come back to the leaders. Tixier still riding behind Mick Claridge. Now, he was faster than him in qualifying. Can he be faster in race pace? Certainly right now it seems so, as he's been hovering at about this 0.2 of a second behind him.
Yeah, well, we've seen Sebastian Tixier have really good pace throughout the season, and Joe, the dark horse that I'm looking at is Togo Hisada, because he always shows a lot of speed back there, but it's a matter of if he can keep it on the racetrack and how much his aggression can get the better of him.
Yeah, that's a good point. And these three are really leaving Bill Tyler behind. That's bad news for Bill, since with him being tied on Tixier, he really needs to finish ahead of that number one to try and get himself a shot at the championship. He was kind of a not one that we expected, a dark horse, if you will. Maurice has now had an issue. Seems like this track is really racking up the attrition. Brad Cathcart also seems to be involved in it. That was out at Wagon Wheel Bend. And there is Cathcart in the 26, you can see returning to the circuit.
Yeah, and talking about all these problems, one of the people that has capitalized on this problem is Don Peak. All the way up there, he's made his way up 15 positions so far, up into 27th.
So, despite the lack of qualifying, he's surviving where others are not. That seems to really be a big part of it. Hisada takes the fastest lap amongst them. There you can see Don maybe even taking another position here, going by someone heading into pit lane. Not sure exactly who that was, but Don is now back onto the front stretch, getting ready to start lap 4. So we take a look at Gwen Old. Oh, did she have an off? Because she just lost a spot. That was into Wagon Bend. Michael Grissinger just went by her for 14th.
Yeah, looks like she spun coming out of turn 1, turn 2, whatever you want to call it down there, and just spun up those rear tires, no contact, she keeps going.
Went deep down at a yard sale once again, though, and is able to hold back Rolly Wallbank, at least for now, but there's a bit of a stack of cars behind her. Paul Wilson in there, Yuri Geisen, and Robert Plumley, who's on a recovery drive. So will we see more changes here in this mid-pack battle as she tries to chase Grissinger back down? She's down 2 from where she began. Needs a good exit off of Paddock Bend, but it's good, just not good enough.
Well, and jumping back up, this is the lead. You saw Sebastian Tixier almost get into the back of Mick Claridge, and these front three have kind of condensed themselves a little bit, and it's just a matter of where they can kind of find the run on their competitor, because looking at their lap times, they're all almost identical. 108.5s in terms of fast lap out of all three of these front runners. And looking at the last lap, 108.7, 108.6, 108.7. They are all identical.
Makes me wonder, is this even pace, or is Mick Claridge holding them up? A trick that he used to do before you came around, Joey, is he used to gear the car for the starts and just hold drivers back on tracks where it was tough to pass. I wonder if that's exactly what he's done today.
That's a very interesting strategy move there, and we'll see here. It seems like he's got enough gear to hold him off down the straightaway, but I know that these cars also tend to fall off a little bit. I wouldn't call it tire wear, but the more you use them at the beginning half of the race, the more punishment you take at the back half.
Yeah, so it might be difficult if he finds the car slipping up, but he's done this a lot of times with some very fast drivers before, as it's getting close between Tixier and Hisada. Coming down into the chute, very tough with the braking on this car, with how long the braking zones are, and then trying to get it woed up for yard sale, but they all navigate it successfully. They've already dropped Bill Tyler by 3.5 seconds. It's a fantastic pace for this front group.
And Bill Tyler is no slouch. He's had several really good runs recently, and here we're watching Jorge Nieva, as well as Gary Ho, John Olson, Laust Olson. They're all really stacked up behind this number 6 car, and just trying to find a run can be difficult here at Summit Point. This last turn, I mentioned it's so crucial, but it's not a big traction point, so it's kind of an even run for everybody coming out onto the front straightaway.
Yeah, Bill's one of the 7 winners that we've had this season, along with Claridge, Shedlick, Kemp, Tixier, Hisada, and Courtiniemi. But nobody but Mick has won more than one, interestingly. And Mick's looking to try and keep that streak alive here, as he's actually won at this place 3 times already in the past. So he's certainly got experience taking home the trophy here in West Virginia, as we continue to watch the 12 car of Nieva try and hunt down Bill Tyler, both of them within the top 5.
I'm actually really impressed with the kind of the pace and the cleanliness out of this mid-pack here. I was mentioning before the show how they were all stacked in those 108s, and it can be really difficult because the frustration level can rise, and no matter how much you try to do right, it just seems like you're stuck in the tire tracks of the car in front of you.
I'm not sure if we've got it pulled up, but I know, Joey, you had a chance to go and glance at what happened at the start there. What exactly caused that big separation?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was exactly the numbers right, but there was just a very poor start about 2/3 of the way back throughout the field. And when you have these standing starts and you get one car with a poor start and you get contact, there can be an easy track blockage, and that's exactly what happened back there. And there were several cars involved. I want to say probably 5 to 7 cars involved as it happened. Right about 2/3 of the way back through the field. I believe it was the number 29 car that just had a bad standing start.
We'll see if we can get that spooled up at some point and take a look at it. But right now, we continue to watch the 12 of Jorge just kind of hover behind Bill Tyler for that 4th position. And it looks like we do have that replay. Let's pull that one up. Get a closer look at what happened here. Is that the 29? Whoa! Well, there's the 29 going up in the air. 23 actually takes a tow, but the 28 just picks his way through. That's Kurt Clapper, actually. And the 29, trying to make out, that's Jonathan Jordan.
Yeah, and it actually looks like there's a little bit of a stack up on the left side there. As you see, this field is just so deep back there, and once you have this little bit of a stack up with a poor start, it looks like maybe even a stall, and then all of a sudden nowhere to go for everybody piling in at full throttle.
Yeah, there was that one, Terry, that didn't get going, and then someone behind him as well on the other side looked like he was a little slow, and I think those combined kind of plugged it up, like you said. So that's really unfortunate. But credit to everybody for being pretty heads up in that situation. That could have just been everyone piling in, but a lot of cars try to take it slow and pick their way through. Now, top 3 are getting ever closer. In fact, Tixier, I think, is the closest he's been all race.
Well, and look at this. He gets a fantastic run out of 11. He is in the slipstream of our leader, McClarridge. See if he can make any ground going into turn 1. Claridge stays defensive, and they both stay in line going down in here. Looks like the inside line is what they both want.
That's no surprise. It's going to be hard to try and overtake around the outside coming into the first turn. Tixier gets sent backwards a little bit by that failed attempt, and Hesada's there to try and pick up the pieces, but couldn't capitalize. So it stays as the status quo, but now we're starting to see things get a little antsy now that we're a third of the way into this race.
Well, and I was just noticing that only a third, not even halfway through, and I'm already seeing just a few corners in front of our leaders. Gonna have to deal with lapped cars this race.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are quickly approaching Brad Cathcart, Jeff Saunders, and a couple others in front of them. So likely going to see that play a factor into this as they head down into the braking of the final turn and out onto the main straight. You can see how much these cars dip and even fly over a few of the crests here. It's not known for a lot of elevation change despite being in the West Virginia mountains, but it certainly has a few bumps and leaps that this car doesn't like.
Well, and something that I'm noticing, I don't think it's caused from the track at all, but we've got damage on the front end of Sebastian Tixier's car, and it didn't happen. I believe it happened way back on lap 5, and doesn't seem to be affecting his pace at all. But, Joe, is that something we should watch out for maybe later?
Potentially. I'm trying to see if I can find where he caught that. Oh, he actually got into the back of Claridge, it looks like. Yeah, so I was able to find it. He just made a little bit of contact. because the straightaways aren't long enough, I don't think Sebastian's going to be suffering, unfortunately. And it's not known for damaging the radiator that much unless you have a huge hit to the front of the car. So he should be okay, but doesn't want to do that any more times, and certainly doesn't want to spin Mick. That's not how any of these three race.
No, that's definitely not how they race. And you see him racing very clean out here, and actually separated the most I've seen them, but just ever so slightly they are catching that those lapped cars that now only about a couple hundred yards in front of them.
By the way, hardest charger right now going to be Jason Clapper in 20th, up 18 positions. Many of those, I assume, overtaken, managing to get his way through that start and getting past about a bunch of slow cars that are trying to recover from an incident. Oh, in front of him, somebody smoking up the tires as they lock him up down into turn one, but thankfully cleared by the time Jason gets there.
Well, and I actually was watching Jason earlier, and he's closed in this gap to himself and Robert Plumley. So if he keeps up this pace, he can definitely grab even more positions out there on the racetrack.
Bit surprising that Plumlee's not been working forward more. He's still down 5, and he's kind of stuck at the back, I think, of Wilson, Geisen, Wallbank, and Grissinger. So maybe he's just kind of being held up here, like we said, passing so tough that he slipped up, and that has kind of set the tone for his race, if you will.
And to talk on that, Joe, I've noticed a couple of these trains, if you will. Ooh, car with a big loose moment in front. Yuri Giesen is going to go off the track. Robert Plumley will go up one, but it's really difficult to pass. So we have these trains of cars that just kind of get packed together and tough to make that headway.
Well, there's one spot back for Robert. And again, came from a mistake from a car in front. Just have to stay patient and keep the pressure on. Hope that something will open up. And Robert has certainly been showing the patience from what we've been seeing so far, but he's got to get a move on here soon, as it's starting to look like maybe there might be a pass between Wilson and Wallbank in front of him as they get awful close to one another, but nope, not this time. Now it's Wallbank getting close to Grissinger, and no, the ebb and flow of this battle continues to flummox all of them and their attempts to try and make an overtake. The 21 getting very close behind the 14, but this is a part of the track where passing is even tougher than it is through the rest of it, down through the carousel and the S's.
Well, and I think you're seeing exactly what we're mentioning. Big loose moment from Robert Plumley trying to get on the throttle. He has more pace than some of these cars in front of him, but it's a matter of where do you go with it when you got such a narrow track and such a big girl you're racing.
Been watching. I'm keeping an eye on the leader, so don't worry. There's nothing happening over there. Big defense down to the inside. Or is that an attempt at a pass coming into the hairpin? And that is going to be actually a lapped car getting out of the way. It looks like Brad Cathcart. Still another big look here as Grissinger goes defensive, and Wallbank nearly makes contact. There's a pass for Plumley as Paul Wilson is caught out by the move and just snatches it up instantly.
Great heads-up racing from Robert Plumley there. Saw that developing in front of him and just stuck on the racing line and took advantage of that position. And look at this. He's already right on the back of Rolly Wallbank and keeping that forward momentum.
Really smart racing from the 21 so far. He's getting the spots. I said he was being patient, and it's actually now paying off for him. It just seemed to take a little bit for him to really see some fruits out of it as they come around Paddock Bend onto the front stretch. Not seeing him close enough this time. But, well, all he has to do apparently is just wait for the right moment. And big look to the inside. Maybe that right moment's coming once again as they're going to go side by side. Oh, and way off the course. There's another one. Wallbank sails into the runoff.
Joe, you had your crystal ball right. You know, sometimes you just got to be patient out there and the passes happen for you. And here he comes again. Another nice run out of turn 3, trying to be side by side with Grissinger in front of him. Doesn't know quite or it doesn't look like he's going to be quite alongside of him here, but Robert Plumley continues that charge forward.
Well, we got to go to the lead because Sebastian Tixier got the best run he's had yet, and he's actually on the attack. Claridge defends down to the inside. They're going to go wheel to wheel into turn one. Again, this is a disadvantage to Tixier, but he's going to still try and hold it. Doesn't find the grip on the long way around. Togo Hisada not able to go past him because of that, but now the pressure is on. Tixier is going to try and go for it.
And you got to think with Hisada sitting right there in that third spot is if he gets that double draft, is there even anywhere to go? Or does he have to be smart and just wait for the pieces and pick them up?
I think based on what we saw with Plumley, I'd say just be smart. If I'm Hisada, just kind of wait for those two to battle like that, find the right chance, sneak into second. And then he's kind of become our Takuma Sato of the Lotus 49 series. No attack, no chance. Togo will try and make a move on Mick Claridge if he gets up into second, because there's no doubt in my mind he wants this win.
I totally agree with you. I think that description was perfect. And right now in front of our leader, looks like we have two cars racing each other down into turn one. We'll see if they notice that we have three leaders, not just one coming up on them.
The good news is that's just lapping. That's Mark Hewitt overtaking Brzezinski for not a position. And Peter is going to let Mick by, but this works out great for Mick. He now gets to buffer between himself and Tixier. Tixier is going to have to try and overtake very quickly here, and he has a little bit of a checkup. Whoa, the car's going off. Hopefully he doesn't run into them, and he does get into the side of Togo Hisada, who absolutely flies off the course. Thankfully, does not get into the others. I don't know what in the world Peter was thinking there, going off into the grass.
I think it was just this acceleration point, and it's a funnel, and yeah, I don't know if he was unaware of the cars to his left, but unfortunately takes out one of our front runners.
Oh, my goodness. And just there's nothing that Togo could have done. He wouldn't have been expecting that car to be coming along there. And, well, that was the end of his story. So now it's down to two. Tixier breathes a bit of a sigh of relief because now he no longer has to worry about what's behind him. He can focus solely forward.
Yeah, and it actually makes this battle with Bill Tyler ever more importantly, because that's the final spot on the podium there. Bill Tyler right now narrowly holding off Jorge Nieva and John Olsen, but that's been a train that's been forming all race.
Yeah, this is going to make it a little bit interesting here as we come into that battle now for that, what is a podium position at this point. Everyone getting promoted one behind those top two. Laust Olsen up 4 positions in this group. Also behind them, surprised he's not able to get any closer. Ben Zoko's up 5. I wouldn't be too shocked if he starts to run down that group. And he's bringing along some friends as well. He's got Sanchez, Gary Ho, Jack David Spickett, in there, so we could see a train of something like 8 or 9 cars here at the front of the field to try and vie for that last podium position.
Well, and you mentioned Ben Zoko back there, up 5 positions, and kind of the trend with Ben. I know that he didn't have the qualifying spot that he wanted here, and here he's got Xavier Sanchez actually with a really good run on him. He might be looking down into turn 1 on Ben. They're going to go side by side deep into the brake zone. I know this is Nieva up here for that 4th place, challenging Bill Tyler for that final spot on the podium.
And Nieva trying to see if he can add another to his tally. Need to double check because I'm pretty sure he's gotten some. Only one so far. And I believe, if I recall correctly, that was his first ever. So he's going to try and get podium number 2 today. If he can deny Bill Tyler and set him backwards in the championship, push him to P2 down there after he came in tied today. And they are going to go by Mark Hewitt, who is a car that's being lapped. So this is not for position, but he's in a very frustrating spot for them.
Well, and just as we saw our leaders, it can be so tricky to work through the lapped cars here, and just kind of separates out all the battles if you catch them in the wrong place.
Oh, Sanchez is off at Paddock Bend. Not sure Oh, he did it to himself. He dipped a wheel off. You talked about the wide wheels on this car. We've seen this before. I think he just didn't anticipate that the rear sticks out more than the front and spun himself off.
I totally agree with you, and a little bit of a shame because he had just worked his way by Ben Zocco out there and was up looking for a top 6, but now he's got more headway to gain.
Well, you were talking about the traffic not long ago. The traffic has seemed to really play a factor in that battle for the lead once again. Tixier is now more than a second behind Claridge, and they've been overtaking multiple lapped cars over the past 2 laps here. So I think maybe Mick doing a little better trying to weave his way past. And Mick does run in the Camel Series sometimes, so maybe that multi-class experience helping him out in comparison to Tixier.
I think so. And it's interesting you bring that up because usually these races don't have to deal too much with lap traffic. And some of the racetracks that they go to, it's easy for them to get out of the way. But that is not the case here at Summit Point. It is very much a part of this race.
Absolutely. Man, they've had to overtake a good dozen cars now because we're up to only 25 drivers on the lead lap. And we're still only 2/3 through this thing. So up next is Don Peak just in front of him. Claridge approaches coming through the carousel and continues to stretch away. It's gotten up to 1.3 seconds ahead of Tixier. He's doing everything he needs to do. Unfortunately for him, even if Tixier finishes in second, he's still in a very good position for the final race.
Yeah, those points battles like you were covering earlier, it's just, you gotta keep it going, though. You can't just give it up. You never know what's going to happen in racing, and trust me, those racing gods are up there and watching every move of every competitor, and if you step out of line, they will notice.
Absolutely. And there you can see the buffer that Don is creating between Sebastian and Mick. Mick puts another one between them. Jan Steffen stays out of the way. So as soon as Tixier goes by, now he's able to get through Jan, but it compromises his line through Wagon Bend, and it's up to 1.6 seconds now.
Yeah, just held up in the wrong area there through turn 3 and compromised his entry. And that corner, it's all about carrying the speed. So definitely lost a little bit of lap time as he still tries to chase down Mick. And like you've been mentioning, covering, it's kind of an uphill battle as he seems to catch a car at the wrong spot each lap.
He's going to need a little bit of luck and a lot of speed here in these last 7 laps or so as they finish it out. Mick Claridge, that's with 1.7, 1.8 ahead of him as we check back in with Bill Tyler. Looks like he's got things under control. Nieva now half a second behind Olsen, and Olsen both equidistant behind him as well. Still a 4-car battle for this podium spot. And yeah, look at the battling in front of them, though, as cars continue to have to try and duel with one another and watch out in their mirrors. That's Jordan with Jan Steffen in front of them, and then they're going to go by Traumahauser, who stays the outside of 1 and 2. That'll at least give most of them a chance to get by. But now they come to the back half of the course. We've already seen if you catch traffic through this part of the track, it can be dire sometimes.
Yeah, as we see John Olsen just get held up a little bit, Bill Tyler making his way through very nicely as Jorge Nieva continues to follow chase here. But you're right, Joe. There's a lot of lap traffic that these competitors are coming up on, and when you're running in this train, if you wait too long, if you're too patient, the car in your mirror is going to leapfrog you.
They're going to get desperate at the end, no doubt. And it's going to get a little bit anxious as way to the outside. Jordan goes slow, and that's going to allow them to get a good enough run. They're going to easily breeze past. Almost gave a run to Nieva on Tyler, but I don't think it's going to be enough of one. He gets down to almost 0.2 of a second and can't get side by side. Andrew Ang just to the outside. If you saw him on the screen, he was off course through 1 and 2. Didn't affect this battle at all, which has suddenly got so much closer now for the podium position, and they got more traffic. Sam Carasala just in front of them in the 15.
Jorge Nieva really starting to pressurize Bill Tyler in front of him. And how much pressure can you apply before he cracks up there? But Bill Tyler been really good on the brakes, just been putting his car in all of the right places.
Bill's been consistent this season. That's what's got him in the hunt for the championship. Might have another possible podium here, but he second guesses himself coming out of the S's. And Nieva, as long as he gets a run down the front stretch, he's going to have another good chance at a pass. Let's see, as he is just about within a car length. I think this one's on.
This is a good opportunity for Nieva. Stays in the draft. You already see Bill Tyler go defensive down the front straightaway, but Nieva further down the inside, late on the brakes. Can he get it stopped in time? Bill Tyler's going to try the over-under. It's a drag race off the corner.
Oh, and they're side by side as they come off that slow exit down into Wagon Bend, still wheel to wheel into the left-hander. Nieva has the advantage. Neither's willing to give way, and they're going to have to go 3 wide with the lap traffic. Bill Tyler somehow comes out with the advantage down through the chute, and he is going to hold him off, but it was so close for Nieva he could taste it.
Really great racing from both of them, leaving each other room on the racetrack, but look at this, just a couple corners of side-by-side racing, and it's already brought up the likes of John Olsen and Laust Olsen to their back mirror.
This is not what they need, especially if you're Jorge. He's not liking the fact that they were able to catch back up there. John Olsen just hovering around, hoping that maybe he can scoop up both of those spots, get himself another podium. Somebody off the track stopped at pit exit. Not sure if they're just letting a whole bunch go and waiting for a wide opening there, but they're certainly being nice, staying out of everybody's way as once again they come back to where they battled last lap. And though it's close, it's not as close as it was before. Nieva could not get side by side this time.
No, and doesn't have any of that traffic to throw a variable at him. However, we've seen just misplacing the tire on entry can throw one of these competitors off. However, Bill Tyler been on his game all race so far, less than 5 laps remaining. Can he hold off these 3 hungry competitors behind him?
I think he knows that this is a bigger picture scenario. He needs this 3rd place, not just for his own pride, but because he needs to minimize the damage to Tixier and also try and hold off Claridge as well in this championship. So he's fighting for a potential crown here because we don't know what's going to happen when we come to Le Mans. That's the other thing. Yes, this is a chaotic race, but that's going to pale in comparison to when we go to France.
Well, and it's just such a different racetrack, 2 totally different mentalities on how you have to approach the race between Le Mans here and Summit, or I should say Summit Point here in Le Mans next week. But right now, it's all about closing out these final few laps of this very narrow twisting racetrack.
Indeed. So Tyler looks like he's got it mostly back under control and keeps Nieva a little bit farther back now, but they go to pass Don Peak. Oh no, they're not going to get him before they get down to yard sale, although he's going to try to. Don sees him coming. Great job there to the 40. He's going to let all 4 by.
Yeah, and like you said, all 4 of them, it can be so difficult. You always see the first 1 or maybe 2, but sometimes you got to look back further than that. Great heads up from that number 40 car.
So far, we've lost roughly 8 drivers, it seems, from this race. So the attrition's been bad, but not super bad. It's just unfortunately caught a lot of them out quite early. Since then, things have sort of calmed down, but I wouldn't say that Bill Tyler thinks that this is anything of a calm race as he tries to keep his blood pressure low with Nieva just filling his mirrors.
I don't think that's possible out there. I know that, at least for me in the sim, the anxiety level when you have that car behind you that's showing so much pace, it makes it that much more difficult to hit your markers and push yourself because, you know, if you don't, that guy behind you, he wants by.
And the competitiveness here in the sim is sky high, especially in this series up at the front. Oh, big slide there from Nieva. He went in very hot down at a yard sale, but was not able to do anything with it. Doesn't lose time either. So that's the good news for him. but he doesn't seem to be close enough. He's taking a lot of track. I saw him dip 2 wheels into the grass there through the S's.
Sometimes you just got to do what it takes out there to stay out front. And we're going to leave the camera right here, but I want to mention Gwen Old. We haven't mentioned her much. Just got around Marco Antonio Salgado that last lap up into the 12th position. Not the run that she's been having, but still consistent for that number 11 car.
Yeah, not quite into the top 10, but she did gain a spot out of that one. So Tyler coming around turn 1. That's Nieva Olsen, John Olsen, I should say, and Laust Olsen behind them. I don't think we've even really had time to check in with both of our cameras all that much this race. I don't even know where Cam Porter is. Oh, he's 22nd. Okay.
Cam Porter had a problem on lap 1, turn 3 with some cars, and it's just been a frustrating race back there for him.
Yeah, here we go. We're going to watch from onboard Laust in the number 9, looking forward. So he sees the whole picture here. That he's the back of the Ford that we've been watching for so long. Also showing quite a bit of patience, just no place to take it quite yet.
And I do love these camera shots, and you're right. I mean, if you look at Laust Olsen's facial expression, he's always pretty game time, if you will. Doesn't have the pucker factor going on, but if you ask me, it looks a little boring back there. He's just kind of stuck. He's got to find his way around, and he's only got 1 lap to do it.
He's a veteran in this series. I think he kind of knew what to expect at this track, and probably happy to just survive some of the chaos that we've been talking about. Meanwhile, white flag is out from Mick Claridge. It's up to 3.7 seconds over Tixier. I can't tell if this is lap traffic or if maybe Seb was riding very close to Mick for much of the first part of the race. I don't count this as a slipstream track, but this makes me wonder if he was kind of riding that.
It could be a little bit, but I really feel like it's the lap traffic today, Joe. Mick Claridge has just caught them all in the right place at the right time, and he's only got this 1 turn remaining, and he sees this checkered flag.
He needs to win both races and a little luck. He did one part of it. A victory at Summit Point for Mick Claridge will set him on the course to try and run down Sebastian Tixier, who follows him home in second to limit the damage. And withstanding the pressure, Bill Tyler to get himself another podium this season. Excellent job. That will put him on 5 for this season. Mr. Consistency, no doubt. Back there, it looks like John Olsen will get a top 5 position. And then Jason Clapper, looking like he's getting ready to take a gain of 23 today, up to 15th spot.
Really impressive run from Jason Clapper here. You see him coming around the final corner and traditionally starting in the back, but making the most of the attrition and also racing on track, like you mentioned, up 23 positions. Also,
a shout out to Alex Rosenthal, who was up 10 and finished on the lead lap. And Don Peake gained 17 with his failure to qualify as well, finishing 25th. I'm sure he was really hoping for a good finish on this one because he's been lacking opportunities on that lately. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interview, so stick around. Well, we said the championship was tightening up as it comes down to the end, and boy, did it, as Mick Claridge managed to take the win today over Sebastian Tixier. But Sebastian finishing in P2 keeps Mick well enough behind that Seb should be pretty well set up for the final race. Bill Tyler, though, is still a threat as he finished right behind Sebastian. Jorge Nieva was fourth as John Olsen finished P5. Laust Olsen right behind him in the sixth position, was then followed by Ben Zocco with P7. Jack David Spickett was only able to get one spot today to finish P8. Gary Quellen in ninth, and Xavier Sanchez went a little bit backwards, unfortunately, and finished 10th instead.
Gwen Old up a couple spots there in 11th. Marco Antonio Salgado finishing 12th. Gary Ho 13th. Robert Plumley was able to pick up the pieces and come back home in 14th place there. And then you mentioned it, our biggest mover today, Jason Clapper, up 23 to come home in the top 15. Michael Grissinger 16th. Glenn Becker 17th. Yuri Giesen 18th. Rolly Wallbank there in the 19th spot, and Cam Porter in the top 20.
Alex Rosenthal achieved a lead lap finish in 21st, the last driver to do so. It's kind of a win here today, especially considering he started from 30th. Tuba was a lap down in 22nd with Bjorn Ackerman in 23rd. Then it's Paul Wilson in P24, Don Peak in 25th, and Sam Carasala, who I think got a little caught up in that opening wreck, finishing 26th. Isan Gen, P27, Stay Morris in 28th, and Matthew Maudsley 29th today. Andrew Ang rounds out your top 30.
Yeah, and then here just a couple more. 31st, Kurt Clapper, Jan Steffen, Terry Tromhauser, all just a few laps down. And then the further down, Brad Cathcart and whatnot had problems later in the race and are multiple laps down.
That takes us to our winner, Mick Claridge, who is now taking, I believe, win number 5 this season with this victory. Mick, we know it's a bit of a long shot for the championship, but it looks like you're doing everything that you need to do for it.
Yeah, I just, sorry, Joe, my mouth's just gone totally dry as anything after that race. I just saw Bill got third, so yeah, what an end to the season that's going to be. I think it is pretty much between those two guys, I'm sure. But I'm just going to, do what I try and do every week, and hopefully we'll have a good race. I don't want anyone to wreck out. We just want to have a good race next week, and see how it all plays out.
You and Seb definitely had a good race up until the traffic. I heard you say that you felt it was more down to that traffic. What do you think really made the difference? Because I know you've run Camel. Did any of that multi-class experience come to play?
Oh, you're joking. Have you seen me drive Camel?
I wasn't going to say anything.
No, it didn't help. No, do you know what? I just, I don't know, maybe a bright yellow car with a blue helmet helps. I don't know, not sure, to be honest with you. I just seem to get it well, I'd say 60-70% of the time I had a good back marker in front of me who gave way. There were a few scary ones, and it was to be honest with you, it was a really uncomfortable race. I just didn't feel good going into that race at all the way through it. And even when I think Seb even gave up, really just thinking about the championship at the end there. Even then I tried to slow down a little bit, and I nearly crashed a couple of times. So yeah, it was just one of those races where I really didn't want to be racing today. It was just a horrible feeling.
One last one. I didn't catch that wild moment that we just saw in the replay just now. That was a great save there. I wish we had seen that one live. What I wanted to talk about is one last thing that I do know about you from the past that we haven't seen in some time. You have a history of changing your gearing for the start so that you can get to the lead. Was that perhaps coming into play at all there to get you off the line a little quicker from the front row?
Do you know what? The way you start the car off these days, Joe, has completely changed since Christian Chapman got his little grubby little fingers on it and changed it. But you really do have to sort that first gear out. And I don't know if many of the guys are really testing it out, to extremes. But I'll tell you, Joe, that start that I got was it was such on a knife edge, whether it was just going to spin up and go nowhere at the top of first gear. It just started to wheel spin just as I got to about 6,000. and I just kept my foot about whatever it was, 70% throttle, and it still just gripped up, and I was like, oh yes. And then second gear was like, I had a little bit of a spin in second gear as I got away from Seb, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. And then I was so happy just to be clear, to be able to cover the inside.
Well, again, congratulations on the win. Will we see you at Le Mans, or have you figured out if you can make it there?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be there. I want to do a bit of work with Glenn this week, and we're going to try and get him up to speed there, and try and get a 1-2 there if we can, trying to get him the F2 championship. So yeah, I'm gonna spend as much time as I can this week at Le Mans. And yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. I mean, how can it not be? It's Le Mans.
Exactly. Well, that was Mick Claridge, your winner here today from second on the grid. And that is going to take us to Sebastian Tixier. Joey has caught up with him.
Well, Sebastian, congratulations on the second place finish here today.
Thank you.
Now, talk us a little bit through your race, because you kind of had a front half of the race and the back half, but the first half of the race looks like you had a great battle inside that top three.
It was fun. The thing is I took everything like as safe as possible. Even the start, it was quite slow but safe, not spinning. And I was hoping that Mick were doing like a Philippe Island or something like that and spin it, but didn't, and he managed to get me. And after that, I was just trying to stay behind him. Even when he was defending, sometimes I was just staying behind him because I didn't want to have Togo trying to sneak inside me. And yeah, so the plan was like just following. At one point, I think I had a good run and I tried, but it was not a good idea, and I managed to get to stay in front of Togo. And after, I think that's where Togo crashed just after. And yeah, I don't know if I was less lucky than Mick or just less talented than him to pass the back marker, but once we get even when we get the clean lap, he was a bit faster than me. I tried to push a little bit, but I didn't want it to crash just to catch up, so I just stay behind.
Well, and talking about that second half of the race, there is, what were you missing? Was it just the timing with the traffic that Mick was able to get through a little bit clearer, or did you need something maybe a little bit more speed out of the race car?
Yeah, but Mick is advantage he has an advantage from me. Is Mick Claridge is like a star, an international star, you know. He's doing like a YouTube video. He's going all over the world. He's people signing his T-shirt. So when people in the relatives see Mick Claridge, oh my God, it's Mick Claridge. It's a god, the cult leader. We have to let him pass. And when it's me, like this French guy, we baguette. No. That's what happened, I think. I think that's the truth.
Oh man, you're saying Mick gets the celebrity treatment out there on track, huh?
Of course, it has nothing to do with talent.
Well, yeah, that is awesome. No, thank you very much. I love the humor in it. And Seb, before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, shout out to Mick for his setup and his very bad first gear start, for me at least. And shout out to my team, Platinum Racing. See you guys tomorrow at Scops.
Awesome. Well, that was Sebastian Tixier coming home in the second place today here at Summit Point.
That's one of my favorite interviews we've had in a while. Is we've got Ben Zocco, who finished 7th today, ready to talk to us, and we had so much of our cameras focused ahead of him, not just on the battle for the lead, but on the battle for third, that we didn't get to see what happened. We're checking here on the replay, Ben. It looks like you had your own fun out there.
Yeah, you just caught my pass there, into the last corner, and then defending down here into the first corner. You know, on paper this track is like impossible to pass at, but there was some passing going on today. I got passed by Xavier, I believe, and I passed some people myself with moves into turn 1, and that one you just saw as well. So it was a really exciting race. Not something that I usually expect from Summit Point. Summit Point's usually a bit of a bore, because if people like us who have been on iRacing for however many years, 10 or more years, when this track was the only track available, pretty much, you get kind of bored of racing it. But because it is so tight and the times are so close together, it's a fun race because it's like Monaco or something. You can't look up at your relative screen, you can't look up at your lap times. You've got to be paying attention the whole time. And it's hats off to the guys at the front who were like a half a second or nearly a second faster than me, because I don't know where to find that speed around here. It's really tough.
Yeah, I have to admit that surprised me. Once you got to the front of that group, I thought that you were going to run down the battle for third there, what became the battle for third between Tyler Nieva, Olsen, and Olsen. Did you expect to just try and hold off the group, or were you trying to gain on that next four?
I was trying to gain on the next four, but the lap times weren't there. I started to sort of go slower as you push a bit faster, and it was just they were too fast. Anyway, especially around this track, to make up that kind of gap. And I started to sort of forget how to drive after I made those passes. So it was just too tricky to push, too risky, too dangerous on this track. So I was just happy to have made up a couple spots after a not great qualifying.
Well, glad to see you move forward, and will we see you when we go off to Le Mans and maybe try and dice it up with the front pack for the win? That one's always wide open.
Yeah, I'd love to. I've missed Le Mans the past, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years now, just from bad timing, bad luck. And it is a track that I can compete up at the front with, probably with the draft. So it's a good shot for a good result.
Well, we hope to see you there, Ben. And again, congratulations on a top 10 today.
Thanks, and happy birthday, Mick.
There we go. Oh, how did we miss that? It was Mick's birthday, and he managed to win on that one, as that was Ben Zoka was 7th today. So yes, big happy birthday to Mick, trying to get himself a championship in the process. We're going to close it up, though, with a big thank you, of course, to the Grand Prix Legends community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And also thanks to the team today, Rob, Joey, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and a merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. Next race, as we mentioned, Le Mans, will be Saturday, March 4th at 8:30 a.m. Eastern. Tune in, because that is the season finale. Be sure to check out our other broadcasts listed here, because up next, the Camel Series will go to Motegi's Road Course at noon Eastern today. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.